to it, because if you're the one team that's not doing it, well, guess what? You're probably going to lose a lot of games if that's the case. So, yeah, that's the wrap on Little League Baseball. Again, congrats to Irmo for getting as far as they did, coming up a little bit short there, but still was a fun ride to watch them. And really, that was kind of our bridge into football season. It was fun to follow those guys for the last couple weeks, but we had some week 0 action this past weekend, and I'm happy to say we are only 143 hours, 6 minutes, and 22 seconds away from Carolina and Virginia Tech kicking off.
That was your bridge. My bridge was Tommy Fleetwood.
Okay, that's also as well. Good for him for finally getting over the hump and winning. And was it $10 million? Did I see that right?
$10 million. He had up until that point, and he's not broke by any means.
No, none of those guys are.
He's a world-class golfer, but he had earned $33 million during his professional career up to that point yesterday, and then he got $10 million for that one victory. And what a time to win. I mean, 30-man elite field, no cut.
Yep.
But here's the thing, though, Tyler. This doesn't happen if they don't change the scoring system that they had going into this year, before this year, where the points leader had a X number of strokes lead and so on and so forth. It was staggered start. Everybody came in even, winner take all. Tommy Fleetwood ended up winning.
Yeah, so congratulations to him. Great weekend out there at East Lake in Atlanta as, again, those last couple of events before college football gets rolling coming to an end there. And, again, in 6 days, we're going to know for sure what this South Carolina team is, at least in week number 1. And I'm just going to go ahead and assume we're not going to see Rasul Faison taking any snaps, because we have to bring that up at least once a day, as we've gotten this far and still no answer.
I'm hanging in there, because it would be the most NCAA thing ever to drop that news at like 5 o'clock on, I won't say Friday, but maybe Thursday. Hey, he's good to go, or hey, sorry, next time. But did we ever get clarity, though? I mean, what if he plays? Has he been deemed ineligible? That's my question.
See, that's the tricky part. And Beamer on Carolina Calls last Thursday was asked about it, and he still said, he was still optimistic they'd get some good news, and obviously still practicing and all those kind of things. But yeah, I guess that's the weird part, is he's not technically eligible, but not technically ineligible yet, because they haven't given a ruling either way. So it's like, and here's my thing, it's like, what if you did play him? What if you did just put him out there? Like, if they've not given you an answer, what can they do? You're almost kind of forcing their hand to say, hey, if he's ineligible, tell us, and we won't play him. If not, we're just going to assume that he is, and we're going to keep going.
Yeah, two things about that. One, if they do just play him without any word from the NCAA, that would be one really beautiful garnet middle finger to the NCAA. Like, we're just going to do what we want to do. But if he's eligible to practice, but he's ineligible to play, then does that mean me at my advanced age, am I eligible to go practice with the Gamecocks if I want? Can they have anybody practice with them? Can they bring back, I don't know, Jadeveon Clowney to practice with the Gamecocks? I mean, so sending mixed signals.
That is an interesting thing. And I do remember a couple years ago when Alabama was getting ready for the national championship, Blake Sims randomly came back and was practicing like with them, even though he was out of eligibility. So I think you can technically have people practice that aren't eligible to play. If I'm thinking correctly, maybe they've changed the rules since then. So I guess that's not outside the realm of possibility, but you did have to get clearance from the NCAA to practice, which they got that done lickety-split. And the actual eligibility thing is still up in the air.
So if they took the time to determine that he is eligible to practice, then what is taking so long to make this bigger decision, this umbrella decision? Because obviously they had to review the facts of the case to determine if he was eligible to practice or not. Why couldn't they spend another 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes just looking at the entirety of everything and say, you know what, he's good to go, or yeah, he better shut it down? Again, the NCAA being the NCAA.
But see, that's the good journalist in you of asking follow-up questions.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what it is. There's a show on called The Newsreader I want to watch.
What is that?
Random fact. It's on. I think it's on Amazon or something. I keep seeing these ads for it. It's Australian. It's about this TV news crew in Australia. It's supposed to be like really well done, but they're like hard hitting journalists. So maybe I can pick up some pointers. Maybe learn to speak better.
Is it like a series or like a documentary?
No, it's a series. It's got all these Australian people, so of course I can't understand half of what they're saying. I'll need the subtitles. But it's got my attention. I'm gonna start watching it tonight, I think.
Let's head out to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines because Paul from, I'm assuming, Rancho Cucamonga, California, wants to write in on Rasul Faison.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. I just wanted to say, and I may be overreaching here, I don't know. But in the case of Faison, or really any player that submits paperwork properly, whatever, that is awaiting a decision, there doesn't seem to me to be any logistical, reasonable reason that it takes this long, and that it is so arbitrary, and that there is no timeline whatsoever. This kid filed his paperwork, I believe, in December. I mean, in my head, just from a common sense standpoint, the NCAA is a giant organization. Certainly, there's somebody around there that has a private desk or an office of some sort that can sit down and look at Faison's case, or the case of any kid that is awaiting their fate from the NCAA. There's no reason that this should not take 30 minutes per player. Their entire career is written down on one piece of paper: where they've played, how many games they've played, if they've been hurt, if they've redshirted, where they've been, if they've violated any rules. All of that stuff is already on a piece of paper, on a computer file, for somebody to read, review, and come to a decision on. And there's no reason for this to take that long. And there's certainly no reason for it to take this long and at the same time have no timetable whatsoever. I mean, this kid's future, I mean, forget about us as South Carolina fans or anybody else awaiting this decision. This kid's future, his own personal future, is in the hands of some sort of governing body that he can't even, get basic, correspondence from, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
To where they can't even say, we don't have a decision yet, but we may have one, at such and such a time. I mean, give the kids something to look forward to. There is no reason for it to take this long and for it to be this, again, arbitrary. I don't know of a better word, but it's ridiculous, and it's completely nonsensical. And I'm going to go in the dispensary now, and I will talk to you guys later.
I love that guy. What's his name, Tyler?
That was Paul, Ranch Cucamonga.
Paul. Okay, I'm digging Paul. First of all, and by my math, it's been 224 days since Faison officially transferred to South Carolina. Now,
yes.
Here's what I'm wondering, and I've got myriad questions, and I've got a couple things to help Paul clear up his dilemma as well. Well, let's start with that. The process was gummed up because of some things that happened at Marshall University. That's where Faison went first.
Yep.
And he was gray-shirted. He did not work out with the team. He did not participate in team activities. Therefore, it's kind of like it didn't exist. It really happened. And then he transferred. The NCAA needed clarification on that period of time from Marshall University. Well, guess what? They've had a lot of turnover in that athletic department since, 2018, Tyler? 2019? I mean, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So they've gone through a couple athletic directors. Compliance person is gone. It's a whole new ballgame there. Marshall had one request. They put in one request to Marshall to get the appropriate paperwork and information. They missed the deadline. Okay. Middle of July, they reach out to them again, and Marshall, with the interim AD, responds, and they get the paperwork. So the NCAA, in all fairness, has only had the entirety of everything it needs since July. That's me defending the NCAA, number one. Now, that's the last time that will ever happen. I'm wondering this. He transfers from Utah State to South Carolina. That's you don't just show up and say, here I am.
Sure.
You fill out paperwork. There are compliance people at the University of South Carolina that looked at that paperwork. They thought it was above board. They didn't see a problem with it. They passed it on to the NCAA. All the heavy lifting, except for that little part by Marshall University, had been accomplished, I presume, by South Carolina. The due diligence was done. The NCAA just needed to look at all of it and say, okay, good to go. So I'm not even worried about what happened between January and, let's arbitrarily say, July 22nd. What I am concerned about is what has happened since July 22nd, when presumably, again, the NCAA has received every single document it is required to sign off on this. What is it doing? It knows this. Look, they didn't just schedule the Virginia Tech game last Tuesday.
Sure.
That's been on the books for quite a while. And it's not like there hasn't been an outcry. There's a hashtag on social media, for goodness sakes, free Sewell.
We got T-shirts with that on it.
You got T-shirts. You got merch. So I don't understand what the NCAA is doing. Hey, look, the Menendez brothers got a parole decision in 24 hours. 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's taking them this long to decide on Faison.
Yeah.
Shame on the NCAA.
We'll have more of this. Also take more of your calls, 803-404-6100 as the halftime show rolls along. He's Scott Hamilton from the Post and Courier. Tyler Head, Cap and Dave with you on your Monday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Captain Dave, Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier, who you can follow on Twitter at Scott Hamilton PC to see all of his insights, nuggets, and whatever else comes out of that interesting brain of yours. You're a good follow.
Thoughtful, prudent, entertaining, and informative.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen, right?
What'd you call me? The firecracker?
Yeah.
More of a bottle rocket.
Yeah, I mean, still explosive, right?
Roman candle? This kind of shoots out.
Yeah.
M80?
Okay. Do you want to talk about a loud pop? I feel like you'd want to be a firecracker because you put more on of a spectacular presentation.
What would Terry Ford be? A sparkler?
What are those little
those things you throw down and they snap.
Little poppets.
Yeah. He's a poppet. The poppet, Terry Ford.
Or a sparkler. He's very tall, sparkler, long and skinny. There we go. Dave, what kind of firework are you?
Well, I'm a cherry bomb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very specific.
You put one in a toilet, Dave?
Oh, yeah. I blow things up. Love it. Could be an M80, but, cherry bomb probably.
As long as you're not one of those poop snakes.
Love those.
Stash.
Anyways, we were talking about Rasul Faison and this ongoing quest of eligibility. And anytime we talk about this, obviously gets a lot of people going. We head back out to the AAA Heating and Air phone line. Skip wants to weigh in on Faison's patience and waiting for eligibility. Skip, appreciate your call. What's on your mind today?
Thanks, guys. Here's a quick question that I don't know if I've heard answered or even discussed. How many people around the country, how many programs have somebody like Faison? So how many programs is the NCAA looking at as under similar circumstances? Maybe they're concerned about a precedent. They want to get everything reviewed, every single case reviewed before they make decisions, or maybe they've already decided everybody's case and they just hate Carolina. So what's y'all's thought on what else is going on with NCAA and other people's applications similar?
Yeah, appreciate the call there. Again, 803-404-6100. I don't know of any others, at least high-profile ones, that are being talked about as much. Maybe you do know more about that, Scott?
Yeah, and don't ask me to name names, but there are a couple of other ones out there. But those are really good points, by the way. I really appreciate that phone call. But here's the thing. The precedent was set when Diego Pavia won his lawsuit.
Yes.
That put forth the template of what is and isn't on table, what's above board to be deemed eligible. Diego Pavia. And when you compare the resumes of Faison and Pavia, you can make the argument that Faison is even more eligible than Pavia because he played less football over the last few years.
Right.
So it's just the complete thing is asinine. And look, and I get the caller's point also that maybe the NCAA is wanting to be extra careful, but dude, the clock is ticking. The season is here. You've got the guidelines. They're laid out before you. You have all the information you need from all the parties involved. Make a decision.
And talking about other eligibility cases, this is obviously a different sport, but it still goes through the NCAA. Zakai Ziegler from Tennessee basketball, who didn't have any eligibility remaining. He gave it a shot and said, hey, I'm going to see if I can get another year for NIL purposes and all that kind of stuff, and they denied him pretty quickly. So it's not that I feel like, is this long list of guys waiting in line to hear their case, and look, I listen to a lot of national people talk about college football and talk about every single team, and when they talk about Carolina, the Faison things comes up every single time. I'm not aware of any other program, at least high profile program, that has somebody waiting for this kind of thing to happen. So I don't think that there's some long line at the NCAA's door of like, well, Faison's 12th, so you got to make sure these other 11 guys find out first. Like I don't think that's happening here.
I don't think that's the case at all. What you've got is a program that's getting a lot of notoriety for multiple reasons. First of all, because they're ranked in the preseason. Second of all, because of the entertainment factor and the attraction and likability of this program that we discussed last week. But also because Faison's a pretty good player.
Yep.
I've watched enough tape of this guy. I saw enough of him play. He was one of the better players coming out of the portal overall, regardless of position. I'll throw that out there. That's why they're getting all this attention. I just find it hard to believe that the NCAA is that tone deaf. That tone deaf to not realize that they cannot sit on their hands with this. It makes them look, the optics are horrible, Tyler, all the way around. And the NCAA is already getting beaten up by people like me, by people like you, by people like both of our callers we've had so far.
So go ahead.
I just don't get it. I mean, when does common sense step in? And all this is going to do is lead to the inevitable, which is the dissolving of the NCAA.
Yeah, well, it feels like we're on the fast track to that. That's for sure. Real quick, Dave, since we're talking about this, if you could go back to Friday's cut list and hit cut number 8. This is Coach Beamer talking about the running back group, as we're still waiting on Faison's eligibility.
Regardless, I know we lost a lot of production in Rocket Sanders, but when you look at that room overall, it's better than what it was last season. I mean, there's multiple guys in there that can help us win SEC football games, and whether Sewell is able to play against Virginia Tech or not, you're going to see multiple running backs against Virginia Tech, and I'm eager to kind of see what those guys do on offense, on special teams, catching the ball out of the backfield, running the ball. It's a talented group.
So, and again, that was Coach Beamer on Carolina Calls last Thursday. So, while you're still waiting, obviously, you have 4 other scholarship running backs in that room that you're going to be able to use. And the question becomes okay, how do you split carries between Attaway, between Auguste, between Matthew Fuller, between Jawarn Howell? Is Oscar Attaway going to be your bell cow getting 70% of the load? Are you going to split it, with 3 guys at, 33% each? Like, what's this going to look like? It does, based on that answer there, kind of seem like a back by committee type of approach until at least somebody would establish themselves and maybe earn that RB1 moniker. But it doesn't seem like there's anybody in that position as of right now.
You know what? I'm good with running back by committee. I really am. I've seen it work in the past. It's not like having 2 quarterbacks. That's a whole different animal. But when you have running back by committee, to your point, you have to divvy up carries in games, but also in practice. Okay, also in practice. Now, they have 4 running backs right now on the roster?
Yeah, 4 that like Bradley Dunn's on scholarship, but I don't expect him to play too much of a factor in here. But 4 guys that you expect to be in that mix.
Okay, 4 guys you expect to get in that mix. That's 4 guys taking snaps in practice. Okay, that in practice. So if one of them is not going to be in the game, he's basically stealing practice snaps from the guys who will be in the game. And it goes back to what I kept talking about last week and the week prior, Tyler. The offensive line. Mm-hmm. Offensive line has to learn running backs, dude. Not every running back is the same.
Right.
Do you hold this block longer? Do you go off this way a little faster? Do you do this? Do you do that? It's a timing thing, and you gel together, and you do that through repetition. If you have a guy who is not getting enough snaps in practice, it's going to make it harder to get it together in the game, especially early in the season.
Yeah, so that's the conundrum Carolina's facing right now when it comes to running backs, and still 6 more days to get a ruling, but I'm not holding my breath on that as of right now. And we'll get a depth chart sometime in the next 24 hours, which we'll dive into a little bit later on in the show. But for now, we'll get into what happened with week 0, as we did have college football over the weekend, and some bizarre things happened. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier, and Captain Dave on your Monday on the Game. Tyler Head here for our friends over at Old Timey Meat Market. College football gets rolling proper this upcoming weekend. It's going to be games on from Thursday all the way till Monday. Then the week after that, Carolina finally plays its first home game, and it's your first opportunity to grill out and tailgate for the upcoming season. And whether you are grilling at home or in the parking lot getting set for a Gamecocks game, there is only one place where you can find all the best selection of meats for your grilling, and that is at Old Timey Meat Market. You'll find their shelf stocked with various cuts and grades of beef, pork, poultry, seafood, and exotic meats. Their selections are always fresh, never frozen, competitively priced, and of the highest quality. Get all of your needs over at Old Timey Meat Market in St. Andrews, South Congaree, or head over to my neck of the woods in Lexington. Old Timey Meat Market, quality selection, a cut above the rest.
K-State acting as if it's going to bring pressure, and here they come against Beck, who lobs it, caught Hansen, got the first down. Hansen still going, dives, he's down, but he got the ball across. Touchdown, Iowa State.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Captain Dave, Scott Hamilton to the Post and Courier, who you can follow on Twitter at Scott Hamilton PC with you on your Monday. That was the call across the pond in Ireland on Saturday for the first game of the 2025 college football season. Iowa State outlasting Kansas State 24-21. A critical fourth down conversion there late that allowed, it was called a touchdown initially, but they called it back, put the ball at the 1 yard line, and Iowa State was able to run the clock out and become the first team to become 1-0 on the season and pick up a ranked victory nonetheless in a what's going to probably be a very wild Big 12 once again this year.
It was a big start to the season for Matt Campbell. You know, is he too conservative? Is he, he's not taking enough chances? That was a pretty big gamble.
That was, I will say, I was critical of his philosophy before halftime where he went into the locker room with 2 timeouts when he could have potentially gotten the ball with about 40-ish seconds left and maybe tried to do something. That kind of played into, he's being too conservative. But, yeah, critical play there. And, again, you were dealing with awful field conditions with the rain. You never know what's going to happen if you try to attempt a field goal or something along those lines. So gutsy call there. And really it ended up working out better that he didn't score the touchdown because then we were giving the Kansas State the ball back. Who knows what happens there. So it was good for Kansas or Iowa State that the ball was spotted short and they could run the clock out. And that was all they needed.
Have you ever watched a game? And I've watched thousands of football games. I don't know that I've ever watched one where they've had to repaint the lines. And this wasn't a hurricane. I mean,
No.
We've seen games in hurricanes, and they've not done that. And they did it over in Ireland.
That's actually a really good point. And I didn't even think about that because at halftime, they did have to repaint the lines. And again, you're in Ireland where it rains, every single day with the exception of like 5 over the course of the entire year. So you knew what you were dealing with. I don't know if they didn't have the highest quality paint or the right paint. But you're right. We've seen plenty of games in the States, here at South Carolina no less, played in monsoons where you never lose the lines on the field. But for whatever, like when the game started, you could barely tell what anything was on the field. All the logos were faded and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. But, before the next Aer Lingus Classic with TCU and NC State next year, or excuse me, TCU and UNC next year, they better figure something out.
It's UNC next year?
Yes, UNC and TCU will play because they'll play Monday night in Chapel Hill, and then I guess TCU doesn't get a home game out of it, and they play a neutral site instead.
So Bill Belichick's going to Ireland.
Bill Belichick's going to Ireland next year,
and presumably might be Mrs. Bill Belichick by then, Jordan Hudson.
Maybe so. There's a very strong possibility of that.
I'm just waiting for what is it, October 6th, I think, is Clemson at UNC. That's Belichick's first ACC game. I've already got my hotel room. I've got my credentials. I'm ready to roll, bruh. I just want to see this circus.
What question are you going to ask him?
Oh, God. That's a great one. I don't know. I mean, is it a common law marriage? Do you have a prenup?
Blink twice if you're being held against your will by a woman that's 50 years younger than you. Something like that.
Is it part of a bigger scheme? I mean, maybe there are multiple girlfriends for all we know. I mean, dude.
So
could be a big love situation.
By the way, they are getting documentary series that's following them this season that he announced the other day. So, I mean, she's got to be involved in it some kind of way if she's not the executive producer of it, right?
That's what shot down Hard Knocks.
Yes, that she wanted to be the EP.
Exactly. She has all the power, dude. She has all the power, and you can put into whatever cliche or age-old saying you want into that. Yeah, it's true. It's legit. It's a thing.
Well, that's gonna be next year in the Aer Lingus Classic, but for this year, Iowa State escapes with the victory. Look, the Pac-12 is gonna be wide open. Or excuse Pac-12, RIP. The Big 12 is gonna be wide open, much like it was a season ago. And look, I picked Kansas State to win this past weekend. Tight game, obviously, not the prettiest game from Avery Johnson, but week 0, week 1, you're always going to have some sloppy play, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's these two teams once again in Dallas in December playing for the conference championship.
Yeah, and would that be damning for this conference or not to have a repeat of this game in the conference championship? Because the first half of this game was atrocious.
Yeah, the turnovers left and right, it was ugly.
And I came in, look, Rocco Beck I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
Given the conditions and that everybody else around him wasn't playing that great. But Avery Johnson, the most exciting part of his game was the post game with his dad and brother getting in the fight outside. They've issued an apology, by the way. All's well in that household.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure that was a fun 11-hour flight from Ireland back to Manhattan, Kansas with those two. That whole thing was so bizarre because, you see the video and you go, okay, 2 Kansas State fans are fighting. Interesting. Then you say, oh, Avery Johnson's dad is fighting. Well, that's more interesting. oh, wait a minute. He's fighting his brother. His own son is who he's fighting against for whatever reason we don't know. There's layers to this, man.
That's the best video I've seen since, 1991, when Rob Dibble and Lou Piniella were going at it in the clubhouse. Okay. And you're like, wait a minute, this can't be happening. Rob Dibble, the relief pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds, is fighting. He's wrestling around with the manager. Oh, okay, I take it back. Don Zimmer and Pedro Martinez was pretty interesting also in the playoffs in 99, I think.
Well, didn't Buddy Ryan get into a fight with an assistant coach on the sidelines once?
But it wasn't June Jones, was it?
It may have been. I know Buddy Ryan with somebody.
Yes, they were with the Oilers at the time.
Yeah.
And I want to say Jerry Glanville was the coach. But Buddy Ryan was that guy. This is a dude's dad and his brother. Now, do they fight if they win? What were they fighting over?
Well, that's the thing is we don't have the context where they disagreeing on how good Avery played that day. Where I don't know, did somebody have money on the game? Who knows?
Well, I mean, and how much Guinness was involved?
Well,
Irish whiskey.
So the game itself, I think, was 5 or 6 o'clock local time. So you had the day to get out to the pubs or whatever, and I'm sure there was Guinness flowing. You saw the beer cup, right? They were stacking. That went into the second level of the stadium there. I imagine the beers were flowing pretty good. Whether they had some or not, we don't know, but that could have contributed.
Here's a question, and I would like somebody to call in on this if they would take the time. If South Carolina or Clemson were playing in this game, would people actually go? I mean, is that something like we haven't seen? Notre Dame's made a few appearances. That doesn't count. But has there been a big-time football program go to one of these games? Georgia Tech, Florida State doesn't count.
Yeah.
Florida State, I guess, coming off a huge year, but
sure,
it's ACC. But to my knowledge, there's not been an SEC team.
Nope. SEC's
Big
not.
10, Northwestern, I think, went maybe.
Northwestern. Next year, you'll have Michigan and Western Michigan in Germany. And, yeah, that I like the upper tier of the SEC and the Big Ten don't go and do these kind of things. I get the Big 12 is thinking outside the box, trying things to get noticed. Like, I'm not surprised they sent 2 of their best teams over to play this game. But if I was a Carolina fan, knowing this game would potentially be taking away a home game from Willie B, I'd be upset by it, right? Because there's nothing better than your home atmosphere, and I wouldn't want to have to spend however many thousands of dollars to go across the pond to see the game that I could see here for a tenth of the price.
Now, Penn State went in 2014, beat Central Florida 26-24, but that was a Penn State program still reeling from the Jerry Sandusky stuff.
Yes.
That was only 3 years after Paterno got fired.
Right.
I'm looking down the list. I mean, Notre Dame, because of its obvious ties with the Irish. Getting Georgia Tech and Florida State was a pretty good get, especially with Florida State coming off that big year. But then we saw what happened with Florida State.
Right.
But I see no SEC teams. North Carolina, as you said, North Carolina, TCU next year. Pitt in Wisconsin, 2027.
Okay.
Pitt in Wisconsin.
Interesting.
It's kind of an odd. Wisconsin would be a natural German trip, wouldn't it?
You would think. By the way, there's no telling where those 2 programs are going to be by 2027. So we'll get some of your thoughts on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines and Firehouse Subs text line. Would you go to Ireland or anywhere in Europe to watch South Carolina play? We'll hit that coming up next as a wrap-up hour number 1. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton, Captain Dave on your Monday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Scott Hamilton, the Post and Courier, Captain Dave, hanging out with you here on your Monday on the Game, where we ask the question, would you go across the pond to watch South Carolina play in Ireland or Germany or wherever in Europe during the regular season? And want to take your thoughts on this. We'll go out to the Love Chevrolet AAA Heat and Air phone lines first. Billy wants to weigh in. Billy, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, first, before I even answer that, can we just give them a little bit of a salute? Like, the teams and the offenses and the matchups that those poor people in Ireland have been subjected to, it's amazing they still want to have football games there, so that's pretty impressive. I mean, basically snore-fest matchups, except maybe one or two, and the first game is usually plagued with, like, bad offense and turnovers, and defense is usually better. So kudos to them for wanting to keep it going. But, yeah, I mean, I 100% would use that as a reason and an excuse to get across the pond. If it's somewhere I've never been before, huge golfer, so maybe I don't fall into the typical category of the Gamecock fan that would travel. But if you told me with, a year notice, I could book a golf trip in Ireland and tie that in with a bunch of my best buddies and go see Carolina play over in Ireland, especially if it's just even a half-decent matchup, sign me up. I'll pay whatever it is. That'd be probably a once-in-a-lifetime memory. It'd be pretty good. I'd try not to fight my dad in the parking lot if I could. That'd be a good step in the right direction. But, yeah, man, I'd be all for it. I think it'd be fun. Obviously, a good matchup would get us a little bit more pub and maybe eyeballs on the game, but it would be fun. I'd do it.
Appreciate the call there, Billy. 803-404-6100. I think it's a pretty logical way to look at it. And, yes, don't fight your dad in the parking lot after the game, and I think we'll all be better off.
So if it's like week 3 or week 5, if it's later in the year, right now we're still in vacation mode mentally, at least. It's August. We haven't hit Labor Day. The weather over there hasn't gotten quite as sour as it's going to get over the next few weeks and months. Would people still go later in the year if those opportunities started to present? Because it's going to happen. Eventually, college football is going to become more of a global game like everything else. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
People go. And
again, you have a lot of logistical issues for the team itself. The later in the season you do those kind of things. Yeah. So, and he actually brings up a really good point that the poor people of Ireland have been subjected to some ugly football. And I brought this point up earlier, when you're watching this game at home and you can't see the lines on the field, that's already difficult enough when you already know what you're watching. Imagine somebody from Ireland sitting there watching, and they did a little thing on ESPN before the game started of asking random citizens college football questions, and nobody had any clue what anything was. So if you're a random Irish person watching your first ever American football game and you can't even see the lines on the field, you're going to be confused as heck.
Well, it becomes soccer.
Kind of.
It becomes soccer, and they're kind of used to that. So It's no big deal. They can look at the sticks and eyeball it and say, okay, that's where we need to go. Well, I'm not going to do an Irish impersonation. It would be absolutely atrocious. But, yeah, the viewer at home is the one who was really deprived, and I guess having that laser line helps. I don't know. I did not like the optics of the whole thing, but after they repainted, and the football did improve in the second half, it was way more watchable. And still, it's football. I'm going to watch at week 0 no matter what.
Let's see. Nameless Texter says, no, we'd have generations of dead Gamecock alumni rolling in their grave if they played games across the pond.
I like that one, man. I like that one. Anonymous. Don't be anonymous. That was a good take.
So Jeff says, not traveling to Europe to watch college football. Says in the NFL, it's something better. Home environments and atmosphere are what make college games so much better. Would prefer never to see a neutral site game played anywhere. And by the way, I'm pro home environments. I'm not even the biggest fan of playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium this upcoming weekend. I'd rather this be in Willie B or, up in Blacksburg at Lane Stadium. I get, kind of the reasoning and stuff behind why we have like the Affleck kickoff and stuff like that. But if you told me that you were going to lose a home game to Ireland, yeah, I would not support that at all. And I'll give credit to the SEC because, again, they're the one Power 4 conference that has not sent anybody internationally up to this point, because I think they know their bread is buttered in the backyards in these small-ish towns, where they pack 100,000 people into Tiger Stadium or Bryant-Denny or whatever, Neyland Stadium. Like, I don't see them straying away from that anytime soon.
That was the best part of the playoff being expanded was getting those home games. I went to the Clemson, Texas game, and dude, it was unbelievable. And I had never been to Austin before. I'd never been to the University of Texas before. It blew my mind. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, what is it like in Columbus? What is it like at Notre Dame right now? What if they ever get a home game? What if they get a home game in the playoffs in Columbia? I mean, can you imagine how off the hook that would? It would be nuts, especially if it's like an Ohio State or a Michigan or some team that's never on the schedule. Presumably, now we can talk about that later, the whole non-conference thing that they're obligated with. But to see a team like that roll in, I don't know that Columbia could contain it.
No, I mean that would. We've talked in the past about like the best moments and best home atmospheres, like the 2012 Georgia game is up there for a lot of people. What happened against Tennessee in 22 that led to the upset and everything. But yeah, it doesn't matter who came in here. If you had a playoff game and you're pursuing a national championship at home at night or whatever, yeah, that would go, I think, to the top of the list of best environments Willie B's ever seen.
Where would you want? So let's say you have opportunity and you can go follow either South Carolina or Clemson to any location for a playoff game. Where would you go?
Oh man,
playoff now, not just a regular game, because my dream place for a regular game is very different. I've actually been to my dream place.
Okay, and God, every road environment's gonna be tough. Maybe if you could play at Penn State during a whiteout, I think that'd be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. That would be. I've not been there. You know what? I don't even have an answer to my own question.
Yeah. Now again, that'd be tough to go in there and win, but that'd be cool nonetheless.
Maybe somewhere like Southern Cal, USC versus USC, and
battle for the real USC.
Yeah, you know what? They could do that.
They could.
I would be cool with that.
They could.
Best place I've ever been, though, Tyler. Best place I've ever been. It's unquestionable. Army.
Ooh.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I bet it is.
I had a 3-week stretch, and I know we're up against it 3 in a row. I went to Army, Boston College, Notre Dame. Boston College was bad. Army blew my mind. Notre Dame, most underwhelming place I've ever been.
Wow, that's crazy. Hour number 2 on the way. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton, David Ayer here with you on your Monday on the game. One sec. Tyler Head for Tilly's Warehouse, the first wine and spirit store in 5 Points in 20 years. For over 2 decades, 5 Points in Columbia, South Carolina lacked the convenience of a local wine and spirit store, but that's about to change with the grand opening of Tilly's Warehouse. Nestled between the Salty Nut Cafe on Green Street, Tilly's offers a diverse selection of wines and spirits, all competitively priced to match or beat the big box retailers. Enjoy hassle-free parking and welcoming service as part of your new 5 Points experience. Make Tilly time a regular part of your visits. Located in the historic Pavlov's building, Tilly's Warehouse is your go-to destination for quality beverages. Stay connected with them on Instagram and Facebook or visit their website at tillyswarehouse.com for more information and discover why Tilly's is the new must-visit spot over in 5 Points. Welcome back in hour number 2. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Captain Dave, Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier, who you can follow on Twitter at Scott Hamilton PC. He specifically asked me to pump up the Twitter so we can get his numbers up. I'm glad you're not locked out of that thing anymore, by the way.
Yeah, man. I was well, now it's a new one.
It's a new one. Okay.
The old one. Dude, I lost a lot of followers. And, in my world, they track that stuff. I got to have it. I got to have it. So I had to scrub off an old personal one that I hadn't used in literally like 15, 16 years. And basically start over. Scrub. And when I say scrub, I was a very different person in 2010, Tyler. Then I've evolved.
Well, would there have been some things that could have come back to haunt you in your previous tweets? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I mean, I don't curse in my social media. I keep it pretty clean, but, no harsh political statements. But, I might have, pop culture wise, I might have liked some things that I don't care for now or people might judge me on.
Okay, so, that's fair. That's fair. Well, look, we can all change. And, it bugs me when people dig up old tweets from people. I'm like, all right, that was 15 years ago. I think opinions and thoughts on things can change. So thankfully you scrubbed yours clean where that's not the case. It
was mainly a lot of like vacation pics and stuff. It was like did we before it was a thing?
Did we see things that we wouldn't want to see? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, it wasn't like I was at, hedonism or anything in the islands. I was just out gallivanting and doing stuff.
Okay.
So, we'll just leave it at that. It's gone now, presumably. It might be somewhere hidden in the bones of Twitter/X.
Well, if it gets on the internet, it's forever. You can't. It never goes away. It's if there's a photo of yourself that you're not proud of, it's still out there somewhere.
That's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
I already have a fear of like a Terminator-like world where the robots take over. AI is already. Look, we've only got a couple hours left. I've only got an hour left. I'm not going down that road, but they will happen. The robots will take over.
Robots can't do what we do.
Dude, I expect to get let go any day from what I do. Have you tried Snap GPT or whatever? Have you tried it?
Chat GPT?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, it can do everything I do. I'm useless. And then, you ask, what is it, Grok? The question?
Grok on Twitter, which I always like to envision it's actually Rob Gronkowski that's answering the questions because I think of it as Gronk. Though I don't think he could answer most of those questions.
He is really smart.
Honestly, he might actually be like a savant where like he just plays like the big goofball dummy to just divert our attention.
I love him.
I'm not ruling out the possibility of that.
He just wasn't smart enough to ask Taylor Swift out first.
Would she have said yes?
Imagine that couple.
I don't see that dynamic working out the same way.
He has more championship rings.
I don't think Taylor Swift didn't know that quarterbacks weren't on the field at the same time against each other. I don't think championship rings mattered to her.
She knows now.
She knows now, but she said in that podcast the other week, she's like, oh, yeah, I thought like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes just went on the field against each other every drive. Like, I don't think the championship rings mattered to her.
That would be a cool game, though. Like a 250-yard field. You have multiple. You have two footballs.
Yeah.
2 games being played at the same time. Dude, now let's think this out. It's twice the width.
Okay.
Twice the width. Let's say twice the width. We'll go with that with like a 20-yard buffer between them, like a median.
Okay.
And you got 2 games going at once, and the coaches are in the middle or up on a tower. They're in a tower, and they have to eyeball both at the same time.
All right. Now, does the clock just run nonstop? Like, how do we do that?
Yes, non-stopping clock. Yes.
Okay.
Or in a post-apocalyptic future where football has been banned, only these oligarchs, the super rich, they have football, and it's on this island.
Okay.
Where criminals, in order to get your sentence commuted, you come and you play football. You're
a writer. Why don't you write that screenplay? I'll watch the movie.
Why don't I have Snapchat GPT, whatever it's called, do it for me?
Well, they're doing everything else now.
Somebody's doing it right now. Yeah, somebody took my idea right now.
Somebody's already taken our idea, and it's going to be on the big screen before we know it. Anyways, we're 6 days away from kickoff. The schedule's a little funky this week because you're playing on Sunday, so move everything forward a day. So today is really like Sunday for the team. Tomorrow is Tuesday for us, but it's really Monday for the team, so that means we won't hear from Beamer and the players until Wednesday. I'm assuming, because typically on week number 1, we get the depth chart on Monday. I'm assuming that means that comes out tomorrow. I went back and checked. There were 16 oars on last year's depth chart. Do you think we eclipse that number tomorrow if that's when the depth chart comes out?
I think absolutely. If there's 16 last year, I'm going to say there's 23 this year.
Okay.
That's my number.
I guess it'd be easier to ask which places don't have the oars.
Quarterback.
Duh.
Edge.
At least one edge spot.
At least one edge spot.
I think the other edge spot, you could see like a or Brian Thomas or JT Gear or Desu or whatever. Like, I think one side will feature oars.
Linebacker. I'm thinking there's a couple there. Johnson.
I think there could be one. I think and it depends on how it's laid out. If you actually have like 3 linebacker spots or 2, because if you have 3, I feel pretty comfortable in saying like J.R. Johnson's 1. Then maybe you have oars with Sean Murphy, Justin Okoronkwo, and then like maybe a Jaron Willis or something like that. But I feel like at least one of those spots is pretty open and shut that like J.R. Johnson's going to be a starter.
Are we going to have oars at punter?
Not punter, definitely kicker. I feel like
kicker.
I feel because we have not heard any definitive like, hey, it's going to be this guy or this guy, and even in the availabilities and insight we've gotten, I don't know if we have a clear-cut leader right now between Mason Love, Max Kelly, which Mason Love's going to be your punter. I feel pretty confident in saying that. But I really could see or at kicker too. And we may not find out who's kicking until, either the first touchdown gets scored or the first field goal attempt is made on Sunday.
It's just so weird, though, to see somebody besides Kai Kroger going back there and launching punts. I mean, I was an advocate of his the entirety of his time at South Carolina. The dude should have won the Ray Guy Award at least once. And for him to not get that, I've spoken to the people that run the Ray Guy Award. By the way, it's out of Augusta. Mm-hmm. I know the guy who founded it. And for whatever reason, he was not selected. And I just thought it was a travesty. I mean, he was so important, and he did other things than punt. I mean, he scored touchdowns. He threw touchdowns. Yep. He did critical things to help South Carolina win.
He did.
But most importantly, he was able to be an effective punter. And that doesn't always mean just trying to launch a 70-yard missile. It means being strategic and pinning the other team back, and he was an absolute weapon at that.
Yep. No, he absolutely was. And I know Mason Love got asked about it recently, but hopefully his arm is as good as Kai Kroger, so you still have that possibility. But as we've talked about a lot, Carolina's in a really unique situation special teams-wise. And again, they're a team where special teams matters more to them than a lot of other teams because Beamer ball and the history and lineage there, where all 3 of your specialists, including your long snapper, are gone from a year ago. And you talk about Kai Kroger doing all the punting in the Beamer era. I mean, Hunter Rogers basically long snapped in every single game with the exception of the first handful back in 2021. So that's also a vital, and we don't talk about long snappers until they get something wrong, right?
You think about Jim Jensen, or was it Jensen up with the Panthers?
Mm-hmm.
He's been up there since 2009.
Sure.
Something like that. And I was watching. That's how important, if you can get a good long snapper, you can find a spot. Shane Beamer.
Yeah.
Shane Beamer knows as well as anybody the value of a long snapper. If he doesn't become a long snapper, he's not playing for his dad. Let's just face it. He can walk on, do whatever he wants, sit the bench, maybe get in for a couple of gratuitous snaps during a blowout of, I don't know, Temple or somebody his senior year. But because he became an effective long snapper, did okay on special teams, he was able to get a lot of snaps in. You've got that, and it's called, look, the whole the whole operation is critical, from the long snapper to the holder to the kicker. You cannot have any kinks in it. And that's something I really give Shane Beamer credit. You know, and again, he's got that Beamer ball background where they really pay attention to special teams.
Mm-hmm.
But he's looking at the long snapper. He's looking to make sure the holder's doing his job. Then, of course, the kicker is in rhythm with all of them. It's important, dude. Who was, and I'm trying to think, and it was before your time, Tyler. I remember I think it was the Cowboys in the 90s. They were the first team to have a special teams coach who became like a celebrity. He was like a real trendsetter because he was an important part. He wasn't just a gratuitous part of the coaching staff. He was an important part of the coaching staff. And I cannot remember his name. Does the Google machine have his name? Let me see.
Yeah. Or, hey, chat GPT it. I'm sure they can tell you the answer. Well, and you know, obviously NFL's copycat league. So pretty soon after, everybody had their own special teams coach. And in college football, it's still a little bit of a mixed bag. Like Carolina's obviously had a designated guy, at least in the Beamer era, between Pete Limbo and now Joe DeCamillis. But there's a lot of other schools where it's like a joint role. Like, all right, he'll be your tight ends coach / special teams coordinator, to where, you know, he's got kind of wearing multiple hats there. But Carolina is one of the schools that does make sure to have a specific special teams coordinator who that's his only job is to focus on that. And I feel like in the NFL, everybody has a specific ST coordinator that's not doing something else too now.
They do. And it was Joe Avisano, the only 3-time winner of the NFL's Special Teams Coach of the Year award.
Well, gosh, he practically created the award if that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to look up now. I mean, because and that was a big part of the Cowboys' success in the 90s. They were able to succeed on special teams. Yeah, there it is. And there's another one. Gosh, I'm all about the special teams, man.
Yeah. Oh, hey,
Gunners.
Listen, it's a third of the game, as they always tell us.
You have bullets and you have backers.
Yeah.
The bullets are the fast guys. The backers are the guys that just kind of fill the gaps.
Do you?
I was a backer.
While we're talking about special teams, do you think that college football should look at the NFL's kickoff and change and adapt it as touchbacks continue to go up?
This could go really bad. My answer to this, no.
Okay.
I hate that the NFL has done it. I truly do. I mean, it's been a part of the game since its inception. And once you do this, now the lid is off to make all kinds of changes.
Well, I mean, the play was mainly dead anyway, so they at least brought some life back to it, albeit looking very different.
I know, but the risk and the reward now are different. The risk and the reward now. I mean, you get what is it now? Is it the same for a touchback as it was before?
In terms of where the touchback is?
Yeah, but where you get the ball placed.
So now it's the 35.
Exactly.
Which is what it's encouraging them to put the ball in play to force returns. Now, I think they should just move the kickoff line back and wouldn't have to do that, but to each their own. But they are trying to make the return happen while being safe because, again, the kickoff's most dangerous play because you got two teams running at each other from a long way away, and I get why they did it. And, hey, give the NFL credit. It did bring that part of the game back that was otherwise pretty much dead. And when you look at the numbers, college football touchbacks are rising more and more every single year.
Well, I think the NFL had its lowest number of concussions last year.
They did.
Since
Yep.
Long time ago. Let me ask you this. Are you a fan of the 2-minute warning and all that in college football?
You want to save that for the other side if we're going to talk about some rule changes? Because
absolutely,
I can get into some clock conversation for sure. We'll talk about that coming up next as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton, Captain Dave, along with you here on your Monday on the Game. Tyler Ed here for our friends over at Pro Swing Columbia. Have you ever played an entire round of golf inside? Well, you can do that at Pro Swing Columbia. They have the golf zone simulators that allow you to play courses all over the world. You can rent by the hour and have memberships available as well. Or if you're just looking for some pointers, you can come by for a free 30-minute swing evaluation where they'll give you a blueprint of your swing with a couple of pointers and drills to work on. They also have lesson packages available as well, from beginners to scratch golfers. And they also use the OnForm coaching app during your swing evaluations to give you before and after video of your swing, as well as some drills to work on particular aspects of your swing. Get discounted ranks to practice and play at Pro Swing if you are actively taking lessons as well. Club fittings also available, as they are also a tailor-made dealer. Book online at proswingcolumbia.com or call 803-592-3916. More info, Pro Swing Columbia. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, David Ayer, Scott Hamilton, the Post and Courier, hanging out with you here on your Monday. Busy week here on Thursday. Jay and Terry are going to be live from Krager's showroom from 3 until 6 for the post-game show, place formerly known as the Nest over in the Vista. And then that night, 7 o'clock, Carolina calls the Coach Beamer. Your last chance to hear from him ahead of Sunday's game against Virginia Tech. We were talking about rule changes in college football, and for the first time in a couple years, we actually don't have any modifications to the game clock or the way the game is timed. 2 years ago, of course, they eliminated the clock stoppage on first down outside of the last 2 minutes of each half. And last year, they introduced the 2-minute timeout. Do not call it a 2-minute warning because apparently they're very particular about that. But now we do have a guaranteed stoppage, like in the NFL, with 2 minutes to go prior to the end of each half. It's changed the game in terms of the number of plays being run. But when I look at the total run time of these games, they still take just as long because they just added that time to the commercial breaks.
Yeah, they took away 7-8 plays and added in a couple of commercials.
Basically, yeah.
That is the most college football thing in the world in 2025. I look, it hasn't really impacted the game. I mean, I kind of like it, honestly. I have no problem with it. I'm good with it being uniform. It's easier for the people who are just now coming to college football to adapt to it if they've been watching the NFL.
Sure.
But guys like me, guys like you have watched college football our life. Yeah, it's taking some getting used to. What really got me was the not stopping the clock on first down. That's the one that took the most time for me to get accommodated to.
Yeah, and I've gotten used to it, and I don't mind it now. In fact, I appreciate teams that can go on long drives. And here's let you know how starved I was for football content a couple weeks ago. Army was playing, who were they playing? Was it maybe North Texas or somebody last year? And they went on like a 12.5-minute drive in that game. I pulled it up on YouTube and watched that entire drive a few weeks ago because I appreciated what they were doing and the fact they ate up almost an entire quarter of clock. That's a lot more possible now because the clock does not stop on first down.
So is it in real time?
No, I mean, it was cut up into chunks. I would have watched the entire, 15 minutes if it was in real time, but it was 5-6 minutes, something like that. It just kind of went play to play to play. But because Notre Dame had that long drive in the national championship that ate up almost the entire first quarter. I love that stuff, man. That's my philosophy when I'm playing college football 25 is I want to go on long drives that eat up an entire quarter. My record is 24 plays in 14 minutes and 57 seconds. So I appreciate when teams do that.
I'm trying to pull it up. I'm just wondering how many fewer snaps Ole Miss got last year compared to 2023 because they were running at a nuclear pace.
Yeah.
Nuclear.
And the average number of snaps per game down is about 10 to 12. Now, again, if you play with enough tempo, you can almost kind of cancel that out. Now, it depends on the other team, how much time they're taking, all that kind of stuff. So I'd be willing to bet they're down a couple snaps. I don't know if it's enough to really make that big of a difference at the end of the day, though.
And how much does it factor into injury, I wonder, that different pace?
I think it's got something to do with it. And look, college football with an expanded playoff and all that kind of stuff, we're asking the best teams to play 16, 17 games. I get it because if you take 10 plays over the course of 17 or 16 games, you've now taken 160 to 170 plays out of a season, less chance for injury, all that kind of stuff. I get why they do that. And again, if you play high tempo and are running or snapping the ball every 10 seconds anyway, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference.
And that's something I have to think is at the forefront. You would think, and I shouldn't say is at the forefront of the powers that be when it comes to expanding the college football playoff. The more games you add, the way it alters the ebb and flow of the season. I mean, week 0, I think, is absolutely ridiculous. Why don't they just go ahead? Why don't they make week 0 week 1?
Oh, I have a strong feeling that's coming when the NFL decides that it wants Labor Day weekend when they go to 18 games. As we've learned last year with the college football playoff, when the NFL has a window that they want, no matter what high-profile game you put in there, you're not going to beat them. So they'll say, I hope you guys have enjoyed Labor Day. You guys can scoot back to August the 24th to start your season because now we own Labor Day, and the NFL will run games from Friday all the way through Monday for their opening weekend.
I remember being in Austin and at the Clemson game, and I've got one of my screens on the computer to the Steelers-Ravens.
Yes.
Arguably the best rivalry in the NFL.
Well, and see, the NFL knew what they were doing because they put the Ravens, the Steelers, the Texans, and the Chiefs on dirt to counter those playoff games. And guess what? They won the ratings.
That's the way it is. I mean, the NFL... the biggest corporation in the world.
Yeah,
biggest corporation in the world.
They may seem evil at times, but they're not stupid. They know what they're doing.
Well, they're taking over Christmas now, which used to be sacrosanct. That was the NBA time. Now the NFL's like, no, we want Christmas.
They have taken over Christmas. They've taken over Black Friday now, or at least trying to, because they're just like, oh, hey, why not? We're starting the season with Friday games once again in Brazil for the second year in a row. When the NFL decides they want a day, they just take it. Like, this is what they do.
And I thought that was jarring and said a lot. It spoke volumes that at ACC kickoff, that was one of the things Jim Phillips and company were bragging about, the number of Friday games and the number of teams that'll be playing on a Friday night in the ACC. And he's talking about it, and they're patting themselves on the back, and they're popping champagne, metaphorically. But I'm thinking, dude, that is not good. You are being relegated to a Friday night.
Yeah.
Because everybody else owns Saturday.
Yeah.
And soon the NFL owns Saturday.
Well, there was a reason why, for years the Pac-12 played their championship game on Friday nights, because they knew the majority of people weren't watching that on Saturday, going up against the Big 12, going up against the SEC, going up against the ACC and the Big 10 championship games at those respective times. They just decided to play on a time slot nobody else had for visibility purposes. And okay, Clemson draws in viewers. Florida State's going to draw in viewers. You have a couple of marquee programs in the ACC that people will go out of the way to watch. But, yeah, if you give me Boston College versus NC State on a Saturday at 7, I'm not watching that over whatever high-profile games on ABC. But 7 o'clock on a Friday, sure, I'll check it out.
Well, but I think the optics of it are poor, though. I mean, I'm still that old guy, get off my lawn and all that. Friday night football, man, high school football. Yeah. So, would you rather have a Tuesday like the MAC? Would you rather have a Wednesday? Was it the Sunbelt's Wednesday, right?
Fun Belt's on Wednesday, Maction's on Tuesday. You'll get now that the NFL owns Thursdays, you don't get as many games as you used to, because that used to be a great night for ACC football. You get Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech on a Thursday night. There's that game where the VT got their jerseys stolen and had to wear Georgia Tech's. That was wild, and it was on a Thursday. But you get an AAC game now on a Thursday occasionally. But again, the NFL is just crushing whatever that is in ratings.
By the way, speaking of being marginalized, did you Tyler Head, did you watch the UNLV Iowa State game?
I did, yes.
I watched it on the app. You have to watch it on the Mountain West app or Mountain West website. That's where we are now.
They had it on Prime too.
Well, you're fancy.
Yeah,
I downloaded the app.
And to be fair, and we'll get to this a little bit more at the end of the hour, to be fair, they did not advertise it on Prime. I found out during the day on Saturday when Pete Tham was like, oh, hey, you can watch this game on Prime through some agreement they have, I guess. So that's how I watched it. But, yeah, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to download some kind of obscure app to watch the Mountain West Network, which, again, I'll get to their score bug coming up here in a little bit, because that was one of the funnier things of the weekend. But we'll get back to talking about South Carolina coming up next. One of your fellow AP poll voters continues to poke the bear of South Carolina with his latest bowl projections. We'll get into that coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Ed, Scott Hamilton, Captain Dave, along with you on your Monday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Ed, Scott Hamilton, the Post and Courier, who you can follow on Twitter at Scott Hamilton PC. Also hanging out, Captain David Ayer, producing on the other side of the glass here on your Monday on the Game. We're almost to the end of the point where you can look at predictions and prognostications and all that kind of stuff, but I couldn't resist bringing this one up because I feel like Brett McMurphy has quickly found himself in like the top 5, if not the top 3 of public enemies for Gamecock football fans. So you have like Dabo Sweeney, Brett Bielema, and now Brett McMurphy up there as he left them out of the top 25 in his AP poll a couple weeks ago, and now has them playing in the Liberty Bowl based on his Week 1 bowl projections, which would basically say that Carolina is going to go about 6-6.
Brett. Maybe he knows something. Maybe he thinks Faison won't be eligible and he's that big of a factor. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to be a devil's advocate. He's going extreme that he's not going to be eligible and he's going to be that important, and it's all based on that. But no, I think it's a reach, man. 6-6.
Yeah, and again, we're in a new era where, hey, if the SEC suddenly got a bunch of teams into the playoff, 4 or 5, and Carolina wasn't one of them, that shifts around who goes to what bowl games and what your record is. But typically an SEC team going to the Liberty Bowl in Memphis is around 6-6 or 7-5, which, would be seen as a disappointment given what the expectations for this upcoming season are for South Carolina. But at least he's consistent. I'll give him that. Like, he's not wishy-washy. He's down on Carolina for whatever reason. I think, he brings up the point about replacing the guys on defense, which I get. And there's a lot of people out there that, are concerned about that. But at the same time, that a lot of people still, I was watching Josh Pate's show last night, he still has Carolina going like 8-4, which, again, that's about-ish where I feel the team is right now. And that can obviously change based on what they do when play starts. But I feel like people are more pleased with that kind of prediction as opposed to, hey, you're going to the Liberty Bowl.
Are you going to put Reese Davis on that enemies list? He left him off as well.
So it's really funny. That one hasn't gotten as much run, I guess, because Reese hasn't spoken about it as much. I know McMurphy was talking about the angry emails that he's getting, and you obviously see plenty of Reese Davis. Once things get started this upcoming weekend, but I haven't seen people as upset about that one. They've kind of singularly focused on McMurphy. Plus, for the Reese Davis thing, you had to go on the poll tracker and see it. And it wasn't like McMurphy published his AP poll top 25, and it said, hey, Carolina's not in it. They're in the others receiving votes category or whatever. So I feel like that subjected him to more of the blowback.
I had Carolina 12th, and that's me going under, and I mentioned it earlier, I was kidding, but I went under the assumption that Faison will be eligible. And I think if he's not eligible and I had to do my ballot now, knowing 100% fact that he would not be eligible, I don't know that I would have them 12th.
Yeah.
Maybe 17, 18,
but
19.
You'd still have them ranked.
I'd have them ranked, absolutely, but I wouldn't have them 12th. I think 12th is the ceiling with the roster in its entirety as it is today. But I think Faison has that big of an impact. By the way, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys and gals who did not have them ranked at all. South Carolina ranked at all. And there's 61 AP voters, so you can do the math.
Well, and a lot of those people aren't the national names that are Reese Davis and Brett McMurphy. So the anger for them is not quite as high. It's the people that you hear from and read about or read from on a daily basis that get a lot of the anger coming towards them.
But what gets me is, a lot of, and it's hard. It's harder now than it's ever been because of the transfer portal, but a lot of these people don't put in the work to learn.
Sure.
Why are you going to put them this low? Because you saw Brett McMurphy on TV say he was going to before you filled out your ballot? I mean, there's little chance that some writer in Indiana knows what South Carolina's roster is looking like.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point because there's a lot of people out there that will kind of look at what the experts, the national people view of teams and kind of go off that. And you might not even inherently be trying to do that, but the influence of somebody like McMurphy that is so well respected and so knowledgeable about the game of college football somebody that is maybe a beat writer for another school could say, you know what, I'm going to kind of go with him on this one. I don't think Carolina's going to be as good, so I'm not going to rank them either. Like, that is a real thing that happens.
And that's the beauty of this website. You mentioned collegepolltracker.com. It does put in biases and trends for each voter. Because I'm not going to lie to you. I put in the work as best I can, but I don't know about Arizona State's roster as good as the people out in Scottsdale. I don't know Iowa State. Iowa State. I had Kansas State ranked ahead of Iowa State. Look how that worked out. Now, that's probably not a great example, but I just find it hard. That's why these polls have to go away.
Yeah.
The preseason poll has to go away.
Yeah, I agree.
But what do you do, though? What do you do? We got to have the content.
Well, yeah, we got to know who's getting upset in the first 8 weeks of the season, but it does create a narrative, right, that the eventual college football playoff committee is going to go off of when they start ranking things later on in the season, which we learned last week. They have a new metric, record strength, where now they are looking at who you beat, how you beat them, all those kind of things, and you will get more credit. Now, and again, I kind of thought they were doing this anyway, but they've reiterated that this is new, that you will get more credit for beating higher-ranked teams, and you will get penalized more for losing to lesser teams. And I guess the implication is to try and make sure that you're still scheduling tough by saying, okay, if I'm going to schedule a top 5 team, if I win, that's great for us. If I lose, it's not as bad, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to go schedule Southwestern Central Michigan School of the Blind, and if I beat them, nothing happens, and if I lose to them, my season's over.
I hate to be the Debbie Downer in all this, because this is absolutely a great idea. I'm all in for the 9-game SEC schedule. Yep. I love that there's that extra Power 4 non-conference opponent that each team has to play, because it protects some rivalries such as Clemson, South Carolina, Kentucky, Louisville, Florida, Florida State, Georgia Tech. But it's also just going to make every week more interesting, except for that 1 or 2 weeks a year when they do play down. They play a G6 or they play an FCS opponent. But there are going to be fewer games like that, Tyler.
Yeah.
And fewer games like that mean fewer paychecks for some of those athletic departments that lean heavily on those guaranteed games, especially at the FCS level, man. One check can subsidize an entire athletic department. I hate to see that go away.
Do you remember what Joe Moorhead said last year before Akron came in here? When they and he was, and again, Akron was terrible. But he's like, yeah, we're going to go there, going to get a check, and the equestrian team's going to buy more saddles. Like, I appreciate the honesty, because that's exactly what happened.
That's what happened. And then every now and then you'll have those schools, and we saw it last year, where they go in and they win. They'll get paid $900,000 to go beat LSU.
Yes.
Or something like that. And I hate to see that go away, because I think that's one of the beautiful things about college football. But it's all about getting the best matchup now, doing the best you can to position yourself for the playoff, because no matter what people say, the end-all be-all is the playoff.
Well, and the teams that are most upset about this are your Kentuckys of the world that schedule to get to bowls, where, they have to play Louisville every single year, but you look at Kentucky's schedule and it's 3 other cupcakes so they can get themselves halfway to bowl eligibility, and, all right, let's find a way to win at least 3 conference games and we'll be good. Well, now you've taken one of those options away to where they all have to win at least 4 conference games in addition to 2 cupcakes to get there. So, it's a mixed bag, but I'm for it. And again, it's more competitive. I think if the committee, and this is why the SEC did it, if the committee is true about this new metric, the SEC having everybody play an additional game, which means 9 more losses across your conference, won't be as harmful as it was maybe a year ago.
And you have to wonder this. If it's not as damning to lose one of these games, then how much do they really matter? If you already know you're going to go through a gauntlet in your conference, or if you've already achieved so much. I mean, I presume most of these games would be at the beginning. Are we going to see a date change for Clemson, South Carolina? I mean,
I don't know. I guess everything's on the table. I would think not. But we'll see. Who knows?
Well, you're getting closer to the championship weekend, and the conference schedules become more and more arduous. I mean, how would you feel? How would you feel about Clemson, South Carolina being first game of the year? Kentucky, Louisville used to be Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
How would you feel about that?
It would feel very weird. I like the anticipation of it being on rivalry week properly after Thanksgiving. But I mean, again, I guess not nothing's off the table, so it's possible.
But if the non-conference game doesn't matter as much as the conference game, especially if this wacky Big Ten model happens where they're going to have these play-in games where 1 versus 2, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, and you got one, you're going to play for that. That's how you're going to get into the playoff. Are you better off having that week 1? And that way, if you stub your toe, you have so many more weeks to overcome it.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, Tyler, you're a traditionalist, man. You got to have that rivalry weekend at Thanksgiving.
I do. That's one of my favorite things about college football, and I'm not ready to give that up just yet, at least. We'll come back.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I've been to some of these games. Like, I've been to several of these Kentucky-Louisville games. I was at the first one in 1994 in like a billion years when they played the Governor's Cup, and it was Labor Day weekend. And it started off the season. I thought it was absolutely fantastic because you had all that buildup in the off season directed toward your rival.
Right.
And it was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
So how would that work in other situations?
I don't know. I mean, I could get behind it if it happens. I just hadn't really given it that much thought. But again, nothing's impossible at this point. We'll come back and wrap up the hour halftime show. It's all right. Scott Hamilton, Captain Dave on your Monday on the Game. welcome back in. It's the halftime show. Tyler Head, Scott Hamilton, Captain Dave, wrapping up hour number 2 here on your Monday on the Game. I love how weird college football is. It is the most beautifully stupid sport there is, and I love every second of it. And every Monday during college football season, I like to highlight the weird things that happened the weekend before. I call it the oddities of college football. And while there's only a few games, we did get a couple of gems from this past weekend, highlighted, as we mentioned earlier, by the Johnson family brawl in Ireland, where, and here's the thing, there was layers to this, right? So you see, not long after the game, the video of what looked like some fans fighting. Like, oh, well, that's interesting. 2 Kansas State fans fighting each other. All right, that's interesting. One of them's Avery Johnson's dad. All right, well, now that's more interesting. Oh, he was fighting his own son, Avery Johnson's brother. Now we've got so many layers to this. They put out a statement. I had to apologize to the school, everybody. We still don't know what they were fighting about. Like, was it argument over Avery's play? Was there a wager? Were they just drunk? Like, we don't have the full context, but I'm assuming they sat next to each other on the 11 to 12-hour flight from Ireland back to Manhattan, Kansas, and that probably wasn't a lot of fun.
Bigger question, who won the fight?
Yeah, that's the thing, is like the dad was on top of the son when the video came on, and like this puddle or something like that, and people were trying to pull them apart. I don't know who landed more punches. I don't know who took on the most damage.
Who started it?
Who started it? Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of questions to be answered about this, unfortunately.
Were there other family members? Who videoed?
Yeah,
were there other family
Where
members?
did the video come from? That lot of great questions there, but a bizarre way to start the college football season. And then one of my favorite funny moments, Dave, can I get cut number 5? This happened in the Stanford-Hawaii game.
Clay Patterson trying to get trending real quick. Cost his team. That might get you a seat next to the coach on the bench right there, Rich.
Well, he's going to trend more for that than he would for the dance.
And then you get the infamous hand on the head. Oh, door.
Did you see this when it happened on Saturday?
I saw the replay.
Yeah, so Clay Patterson, defensive lineman for Stanford, gets a sack on a critical drive that Hawaii had before halftime and proceeds to do like a TikTok dance twice in front of an official who, of course, throws the flag. And then he does, the hands on the helmet, what have I done? And I imagine that was not a fun conversation on the bench with a D-line coach or defensive coordinator when he got back over there, because Hawaii would drive to score a touchdown in a game that they would win with a last-second field goal. So that was pretty important 7 points there, I would say.
I would definitely want to get those back, and he'll pay for that later.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. That was, again, I'm relatively young. I didn't even know what the dance was.
I'm not into TikTok, bro.
I had to delete it years ago because I was wasting too much time on it.
Yeah, well, listen, I've had a blast. I've got to bounce, brother.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll probably be, if not talking to you again this week, sometime next week. All right, Scott Hamilton of the Post and Courier. You can follow him on Twitter at Scott Hamilton PC. I want to hit one more weird thing of college football from over the weekend, and that was the banner, not the banner, the score bug of the game between Idaho State and UNLV, which initially it was on the Mountain West Network, and then it was on Prime, but it was also on Rise Sports or something along those lines. This thing was kind of all over the place. But anyway, they had a very weird score bug in this game, which is the thing at the bottom of the screen that tells you the time and down and distance and all those kind of things that really confused a lot of people, because from left to right, you had the quarter, the time, Idaho State's score, you had the down and distance, the play clock, and then UNLV score. And the scores were facing each other. So you had the words Idaho State, their score. Other side, you had UNLV's score and then UNLV's name. I don't know who made that score bug graphic or if it was their first day making something like that, but it was very busy, very hard to follow. And our eyes are trained to have the clocks close together. So you can look at the game clock and the play clock really close to each other. And that, I was so thrown off. It was very hard to keep up with what was happening in that game because our eyes are just not trained to look at things that way, I guess, when it comes to football. But that was an odd way to watch that game on Saturday that UNLV very barely survived. They gave up 555 yards of offense to Idaho State, who is an FCS team, by the way. So Dan Mullen, as he returns to the college football coaching realm, has his work cut out for him out there in Las Vegas. 2 hours down, one more hour to go. Going to be joined by Jamie Bradford of the Big Spur coming up from 2:15 until 2:45, as well as get back into the latest headlines with South Carolina coming up next as your Monday rolls along here in the game. Tyler Ed here for the mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder, with First Palmetto Bank. If you're looking for a mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder has you covered. He's helped so many 107.5 The Game listeners and can help you too. With the Game personally recommend him. Owner and operator right here in the Midlands, Jacob has local decision makers, which means quick and precise processing and underwriting. If you're looking to make a move, give Jacob a call at 803-719-1005 or email him at jcrowder@firstpalmetto.com. Interest rates have stabilized as well as the local housing market, and now is as good of time to buy a house as any. Jacob and First Palmetto Bank have products to help home buyers, and if you're considering building a home, they have no-nonsense construction loans that fit your needs. Give Jacob a call at 803-719-1005. Jacob's MLS number is 198432. First Palmetto Bank is a member of FDIC and an equal housing lender. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Captain Dave, along with you here on your Monday on the Game. Again, we'll be talking to our guy, Jamie Bradford, coming up at 2:15 today. It'll be a regular part of our Mondays here as we get into football. And obviously, this time next week, we're going to have plenty of things to react to in terms of South Carolina and what happens in week number 1 against Virginia Tech. Hopefully a lot of good things, which I'll get into more of that coming up here in a moment. But a lot of news happening over the weekend for South Carolina as well. Got to start with the scary situation involving Travian Robertson, who, of course, is South Carolina's defensive line coach, as he was involved in a head-on collision early on Friday morning. I believe it was around 5:45, where the other vehicle involved crossed over, hit him head-on. Thankfully, Coach Robertson was able to survive the crash, just for one. Is in the hospital right now, still currently, based on the latest reports that we have. Unfortunately, the other party involved did lose their life. We don't know exactly what happened. You know, you hear stories of medical episodes and things like that that can lead to those kind of head-on collisions. So we don't know exactly what went down there, but Coach Robertson is the hospital, was in ICU over the weekend, and according to the report, the statement put out by the team and Coach Beamer, you know, he's stable, and they expect him to make a recovery and hopefully be on the sidelines very, very soon. To my knowledge, we haven't gotten any update again through today, but Coach Beamer will speak on Wednesday for his usual weekly press conference, and I imagine he'll have some kind of update there. But certainly thinking about, you know, Coach Robertson and hoping to get him back on the sidelines here very soon. And in more positive news, later on that day, South Carolina did also get a commitment from 5-star interior offensive lineman Darius Gray out of Richmond, Virginia. Big get for South Carolina, obviously, to add to the 2026 class, which was already looking pretty strong. But you add a 5-star to that, and that makes it look that much better. And, you know, he's somebody, listening to Chris talk about him this morning, that covered the recruiting process and the commitment and all that. This guy is sounds like a good kid, got a good head on his shoulders, and somebody that can do a little bit of everything. I mean, you look at his profile online, and he was a multi-sport athlete, great basketball player, great football player, that can obviously play both ways, and somebody that Carolina fans can be very excited to see suit up for the Garnet and Black, you know, coming up next year. You know, where he plays on the interior, guard, center, we'll have to see. He primarily played left tackle last year for his high school, and I'm assuming that'll maybe be the case again this upcoming year. But he's 6'3", so a little bit too short maybe for what a tackle should be in the SEC. 285, obviously room to grow and put some weight on, some muscle, and all that kind of stuff when he gets to South Carolina. But nevertheless, a huge get for Coach Beamer, Lonnie Teasley, and everybody there at South Carolina. And it's the third 5-star just of the Beamer era alone. As far as like consensus across the board, 5 stars between him, Dylan Stewart, and obviously Nick Harbor. So it continues on the trend of Coach Beamer and staff recruiting really, really well. I will say this, and by the way, this is a guy that you beat out Ohio State for, Clemson for, LSU for, Tennessee for. So you beat, and again, any 5-star is going to command a who's who when it comes to, you know, schools interested. But those are the kind of recruiting battles we talk about being that next step, right? Where Carolina recruits well, but you want to start consistently winning against those big-name schools in these high-profile battles, which is exactly what South Carolina has done here with Darius Gray. And they've done a good job recruiting the offensive line, and we've heard about this Great Wall of Carolina and all that kind of stuff. We need to start seeing it on the field, though. That's the one thing, is like, you've recruited well, but unfortunately the results on the field in the Beamer era have not been consistent enough. And I was talking earlier about concerns heading into week number 1, and one of the biggest ones was offensive line. Again, because you just haven't seen it be consistent enough in the Beamer era and protect your quarterbacks the way that you need to and all that kind of stuff. That people are going to just err on, well, it's probably not going to be great again until you are seen and convinced otherwise. But again, you're doing good out there on the recruiting trail, and hopefully that translates to some success coming up on the field, you know, on the field as well. In terms of week number 1, you have a obviously Power 4 opponent in Virginia Tech, one that I don't think people are necessarily like terrified of. Like, all right, if you're playing Ohio State, if you were playing Penn State or Notre Dame, then yeah, you're looking at that game shaking a little bit because those are three teams that obviously made it very far in last year's college football playoff compared to Virginia Tech. That's a little bit shaky, right? Brent Pry's in the hot seat. Not in the best situation there as of right now. They got a lot of pressure on them, and I think Carolina, I believe, has the better roster overall, and hopefully that translates to South Carolina winning that game. But as we sit here on Monday talking about next week, where this time next week we'll be in the middle of our first Reaction Monday of the entire season, where we'll take your calls, we'll take your text and all those kind of things, reacting to what we had seen the day before, that hopefully results in a South Carolina win. Now, that doesn't mean there can't still be some concerns and those kind of things coming away from it as well. But I was thinking earlier, next week, what are the main talking points? What are we going to be talking the most about when it comes to the offense, the defense, and this team as a whole? And I'll kind of talk about the team as a whole first, where, look, week one has the chance to be really sloppy, right? We talk so much about the fact that college football is the one level of football, pretty much the one sport in general overall, that doesn't play preseason games. In high school, you have scrimmages against other teams. In the pros, you have preseason games. In every other sport, you have some form of games before your actual games to get into the feel. And yes, the team scrimmaged itself a couple times on the couple previous Saturdays, but scrimmaging yourself, your own team, where you're all working together, you know what's coming and all those kind of things, is way different than scrimmaging even a Wofford or something like that, an in-state school that can give you a different look and guys that you're not familiar with and those kind of things. So because of that, because college football is the way that it is, and you saw a lot of that over the weekend in week number 0, you're going to have some not so great things happen, some ugly things happen, some things that may concern you a lot. And I look at last year's week 1 game against Old Dominion as the perfect example. If you would have told anybody walking out of Williams-Brice Stadium last year after a 4-point win over Old Dominion, who was a 500 team the year before, that South Carolina team was going to be on the cusp of the college football playoff, everybody would have laughed in your face. They would have said, there is no way a team that just played that game to that kind of team is going to put anything together worthwhile the rest of the season. And obviously they did. So I don't think, no matter what happens on Sunday, I will be in the category of freaking out about anything of, oh my God, this is a disaster. Now, that being said, 2 years ago, you got run over by North Carolina's defensive line to the tune of 9 sacks, and that obviously was a precursor for what was going to come with the offensive line struggling that entire season. But generally, my rule of thumb is week 1's always going to be sloppy, working out kinks. You saw, obviously, the mess of turnovers and miscommunications between Iowa State and Kansas State over the weekend over there in Dublin. So you just hope that it's nothing costly, right? This was a team in Carolina that had trouble holding on to the ball last year. And I can tell you one way you can lose to Virginia Tech is if you keep giving them the ball with a short field to go into score, right? You got to avoid those kind of costly mistakes. Make sure you keep the mistakes to minimum and hopefully clean up whatever you do wrong the next week before taking on SC State. But as far as like talking points, the biggest ones that I can think of would be the play of the wide receivers on offense. And this is a group that I've noticed a lot in listening to the talking heads around the country. When they've discussed South Carolina as of late, the word underrated keeps getting brought up about this wide receiver group. And again, we've talked about them day in and day out for the past 9 months, almost 9 months, since last season ended. So they don't seem underrated to us because we look at the minute details, what's happening in practice, what we think these guys are going to be able to do with more development. And it wouldn't be surprising at all to us if South Carolina's wide receiver group ends up being really good. I think it would surprise a lot of people nationally because I think most of them kind of look at, oh, Nick Harbor, 5-star guy, really fast, but hasn't done a whole lot production-wise at wide receiver. We'll see. And then just a bunch of guys that people outside of this bubble don't really know anything about at wide receiver. But I hope that this is a game this upcoming weekend where we can see some of that flash, right? And I'm not saying that somebody has to go out there and pull in $150 for 3 touchdowns. It'd be great if they did, but that's not what I'm talking about. I just want to see good, solid receiver play, spread the ball around, have some, let your playmakers make plays, those kind of things, and maybe start to see that emergence, right, of Harbor and Bennett and Brown as maybe kind of your 3 main guys, and then you have other guys filling the gaps behind that. Those are the kind of things that I want to see, and I hope this wide receiver group gets off to a really strong start in week number 1, and I think that's something that we're going to be talking about quite a bit. Because here's the thing, with Sellers, at this point, even if he does go out there and make magical plays, I don't think that's headlines necessarily. I think that's, we expect him to do that. Same thing on defense, like with pass rush, right? If Dylan Stewart goes out there and has 3 sacks in the game on Sunday, it's like, that's great, but we also kind of expect you to do that. I'm talking more about like, wow, didn't see that coming type of things in terms of what we're going to be talking about this time next week. And I think, or I hope, we're talking about J.R. Johnson backing up what's been said about him this entire offseason. I mean, Debo Williams 1 week ago sat in this exact spot that I'm sitting in right now, and he sang the praises of Fred, JR, whatever we're going to call him, saying, hey, he's a dude, man. This guy, I see a lot of the linebackers that were in that room a year ago in him. And if that's the case, then that room should be in good hands with him, Murphy, Okoronkwo, and you just hope you see that group, and specifically JR, but that entire group, show command, show skill, show ability, that it's hard to replicate what last year's linebacking group did. But if they can be even in that same realm, I think you're off to a very, very good start. And again, with the expectation that it only gets better as the season goes along. Because again, it's week 1. You still got 12 or 11 more games over the next 13 weeks at that point to improve, get better, develop on all those kind of things. But if you can get off to a good start, especially defensively, on Sunday against Virginia Tech, I'm going to feel good about your defense as a whole going throughout the entire year. And I think those can be some of the main talking points that we have ahead of that, or coming away from the week 1 matchup against Virginia Tech for our First Reaction Monday coming up this time next week. As we'll be doing each Monday on the post-game show, or excuse me, on the halftime show, is talking to our guy, Jamie Bradford. You, of course, heard him many years on the early game when Bill was there with Preston, and we'll start having him on Mondays afternoons at 2 o'clock as we get into football season. So we'll get his thoughts on what's happened this summer and where this team stands in his mind coming up next as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head, Captain Dave, along with you here on your Monday on the Game. Tyrod here once again for our friends at Old Timey Meat Market. As I said earlier, we are just days away from football officially starting for South Carolina. And whether you're going to be tailgating at the game or just grilling out at home with your friends and family, you need the right equipment to do it with. And that starts with your own Traeger grill. Grill out with family and friends. Old Timey Meat Market has plenty of Traeger grills in stock with plenty of pellets, rubs, sauces, and accessories too. You can come by Old Timey Meat Market and check out their selection and sizes of Traeger grills. You can come check them out in St. Andrews, South Congaree, or my neck of the woods over in Lexington. Old Timey Meat Market and Traeger grills, a perfect combination for your football experience. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Captain Dave, along with you here on your Monday on the game. And as we get into the start of football season, each Monday we're going to be checking in with our guy, Jamie Bradford, in the 2 o'clock hour. Joins me now on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Jamie, happy game week. Hopefully the summer's been good to you. And I know we're all frothing at the mouth to finally get this thing rolling on Sunday.
I know. We're all ready to go, aren't we? It's finally actually time to talk ball and not talking season, as Coach Spurrier once named it. Players, plays, coaches, games, all the good stuff has finally arrived.
Yep, absolutely. And again, 6 days from kickoff against Virginia Tech. And I was just talking about in the last segment, possible talking points this time next week, and we do Reaction Monday. We take phone calls, text, all that kind of stuff on how people are feeling and their initial thoughts coming away from the game. This time next week, what do you think the biggest thing we're going to be talking about from South Carolina's perspective is?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if you're referencing something good, I think people are going to be, who haven't followed as closely, I think that they'll be pleasantly surprised with the depth of the running back room. You know, again, everybody's still hoping for a miracle there before they kick off on Sunday with Rasul Faison. But even if he plays, you're still going to see all of those guys. And I also think the same thing about the wide receiving core, to be honest with you, man. I mean, those guys, they can play. I think you'll see a lot of familiar faces in the starting lineup, but you're probably also going to see 7 or 8 guys run out there and get some playing time. So a bunch of them should catch balls, I would think. And, those are two positions that over the last few years, one year like last year, okay, they finally kind of solved the problem of the running back room, and then it felt like they weren't really deep at the wide receiver position. Now, in the year before that, it was like, well, they have no running backs, but they got a couple wideouts, right? Now they've got some depth there, and I think they're anxious to go out there and show it at both positions.
And that's something I've noticed in listening to a lot of national people talk about Carolina, because, again, we're in the trenches talking about these guys every single day. We know what the capabilities of that wide receiver room are, but I'm starting to get more of a sense that people think it's an underrated group that could really jump up and surprise a lot of people when you hear what's been said about the last couple of weeks. And, again, if you have a very solid group of receivers coupled with the North Sellers and a halfway decent run game, then there's really nothing this offense can't do, I would think.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I mean, and you've got a real true play caller up there in Mike Shula, and obviously you mentioned Lenore Sellers. I mean, those guys are difference makers, and they're going to make guys around them better no matter what. I mean, obviously all this hinges on what happens up front with the offensive line and things like that. But to your point, like I had Peter Burns on my show a couple of weeks ago, and he actually was leaning on me, and he asked me, and I was asking him questions, and he kind of reversed it on me, and he was like, I would lean more on you for things like the wide receiving room depth and stuff. We just hadn't seen it. And I mentioned to him, I said, well, look, what we've seen is minimal, but I will tell you this, Mike Fury had a chance back during the portal period to go out and sign some guys in the portal. I say Mike Fury, I mean, the whole team in general, Darren Usher, Shane Beamer, Mike Fury, et cetera, et cetera. And Coach Fury said, no, I'm good. I don't want to go get anybody from the portal. I like these guys. I like this incoming group of freshmen that we've got. He said the same thing, in the spring. I like these guys. I don't think we need to have any late ads. Let's coach them up. Let's get them there. We're not going to go find more talented guys than the ones that we've got. And that told me a lot. And I mentioned that to Peter Burns, and I think that kind of became a talking point for him too. And a couple of those guys on the SEC network, I know Chris Doran came to town and said he was pretty surprised by what he saw out there from that group. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of unknowns when you look around the country at all the national folks who cover this sport. They look at South Carolina, they think about what have they lost, and they're apprehensive to give them a lot of credit for what they're going to replace that with. But I think a lot of these folks will be a little bit surprised here in the next couple of weeks.
And talking to Jamie Bradford on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. And one thing, and we talked about it with Greg McElroy a couple weeks back also of the SEC Network, and he has the experience of doing this when he was in college, because when you look at his receiving core from year 1 to year 2 at Alabama, it pretty much stayed the exact same. And you saw significant strides. Yes, he was coupled with guys like Julio Jones who were just freakish talents at the wide receiver spot. but you saw a significant increase from year 1 to year 2 playing with those guys. And really, it's the exact same receiving core added in with a couple of very talented freshmen, or a handful of very talented freshmen as well, that we expect to see the field too. And as we've talked about many times this offseason, the Harbor element of focusing on football for the first time in forever, particularly since he's been at South Carolina, I think can only put him that much further ahead of where he ended last year, kind of in line with Sellers in terms of his development and coming along as a receiver to maybe take that reins as wide receiver number 1 when the season starts.
Yeah, Nick Harbor is almost like for anybody that has had a child or multiple children, you watch the stages of life, right? And there's these little things that you get really proud of, from learning to crawl to learning to walk to learning to eat by yourself and learning to go to the bathroom by yourself. And they're able to get into the shower and get out of the shower, into the bath and out of the bath, and all these things that you're like, man, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I don't have to do that anymore. And, like in the middle of last year with Nick, you could feel it with him. You could see it, and then you could feel it. It was less a guy learning to play wide receiver and more a guy getting comfortable playing wide receiver, just his natural movement and catching the football and the things he would do without the ball in his hands, and then the things he was able to do with the ball in his hands. And so to your point, yeah, you spend an entire offseason training, working on the things that make you a good player, getting stronger, getting actual game speed. We all know that, when it comes to straight line speed, he's got it. But does he play fast and all that type stuff? I mean, it's easy to expect to see a lot more out of him early in the year. I'm really curious who Lenore Sellers will start to zero in on when he's a little uncomfortable back there, when there's pressure and things like that. I mean, they always pick one. There's always one guy that you feel more comfortable just kind of tossing the ball up to. Is that Nick Harbor? I guess we'll find out. But somebody at some point in time has got to emerge from that wide receiving core.
Well, and obviously that guy was Josh Simon a year ago, who's moved on. We do hear good things about Brady Hunt in the offseason as well, who, had his moments last year playing behind Josh Simon and would certainly be a good safety net, if you need him in a check down the flat or something along those lines. But certainly want to see the wide receiver room, emerging at the end of the day because, again, that just gives you the opportunity to move this offense that much more forward and obviously would help Sellers in his progression as a passer, which we know is a big talking point or a big point of emphasis this offseason with him and Mike Shula.
Yeah, man. And look, that tight end group they're pretty good. They're pretty good. I mean, they're deep. These guys, a couple of these guys have obviously been around here for a little while. And I think one of the main things in the offseason, from what I understand, was what they need to – Sean Elliott's in charge of that group. If anybody knows Sean Elliott, they understand, what he brings from an energy standpoint, a physicality standpoint. That's like the Match Me shirts with Sean Elliott. You've got to get here. If you're going to play for this guy at that position, there is a certain threshold that you have got to get to, and you've got to hold it. You got to be able to stick your face in the fan. You got to be able to want to stick your face in the fan. And my understanding is they got a bunch of guys that want to do that. I mean, there's a guy there who not necessarily looks, from a physical standpoint, they look totally opposite, but reminds me of one of my dear friends, the great Pat DeMarco, and that's Mo Brown. I mean, he's a guy who you might see him in there kind of in a fullback type role, right? Or lining up at tight end. We've seen what he does on special teams. He just wants to play. Coach, just put me in the game. Last year the guy was awarded with a scholarship. He goes out and blocks a punt against LSU. He comes from a military family. He's got an incredible background. I mean, those are the type of guys that fit Sean Elliott's room. And I know they feel like they've got quite a few of those guys in there. And if that's the case, there's only one ball, Tyler. There's only one ball. So who's going to play? When do they play? What does that look like? What is this guy good at versus that guy? You don't want to have to put a guy in there who's more of a blocking dude versus a guy who's more of a receiving guy. You don't want to kind of give away the play or what you're doing. But I think they're pretty comfortable with that group and with that receiving core together. I mean, it could all come together real early for this football team, and they could have some lethality in there. We'll just have to see.
We'll have more with Jamie Bradford on the other side as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head, Captain Dave, along with you here on your Monday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you, Captain Dave, producing on the other side of the glass, talking with our guy Jamie Bradford on the AAA heating and air phone lines ahead of the Week 1 matchup between South Carolina and Virginia Tech as we finally start to answer some questions that we've been having for the past 9 months since the last time we saw South Carolina play a game against Illinois. And a lot of those questions, Jamie, revolve around the defense. And, you know, there's no two ways about it. You're replacing a lot of NFL talent from a year ago and bringing a lot of guys to replace them that don't have near the level of experience that this team had a year ago. Doesn't mean it's not going to be good. Can't be as good, if not better. We just don't have the proven track record with a lot of these guys on defense to fall back on, which rightfully so is going to make a lot of people nervous going into the season.
Up front, with the exception of Dylan Stewart, right? I mean, you want to give Brian Thomas some credit. I mean, we know about the secondary. Those guys, they've been around a while. You know, I think DQ Smith is in line for an outstanding senior year. But largely what you're talking about there is the front seven, because so many of those guys went off to the NFL. And, yeah, you know, I don't know if the word concern is the word to use or if it's more like a question mark. As far as talent goes, that's there. I mean, let's remember where these guys came from. Number one, let's start with Nick Barrett, who has elected to stick around and honor his commitment to South Carolina. He's been here for 5 years, and he's ready to play. He looks good, and there's a reason why Shane Beamer took him to SEC Media Days back in July. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy is a five-star defensive tackle, one of the top 10 players in the country just a few years ago, who went to A&M. And Montel Goodwine committed to play defensive tackle for Nick Saban. I'll take my chances with guys like that. You know what I mean? But they just haven't been in there playing a bunch, and they haven't been in there playing a bunch together. Troy Pikes is going to play up front at the tackle position too. South Carolina beat Ohio State for him in the portal, the kid coming out of Georgia Southern. And then you've got one of the more athletic linebacking cores that I can remember in my, 35 years of following South Carolina football. But, Tyler, the key to that is at what point in time are they locked in like tier one mode? You know what I mean? Last year, they bring in Demetrius Knight. Well, raise your hand if you thought Demetrius Knight was going to end up being a second-round draft pick that goes and starts for the Cincinnati Bengals in his rookie season. Nobody saw that coming with that kid. But they knew what they had returning in Debo Williams and guys like that, and it was able to come together really early and really quickly. So, you know, I've leaned on guys like your buddy, Preston Thorne. You know, what's important about linebackers trying to kind of cohesively come together as a unit early on, and it's not necessarily the athleticism. It's the little things. Are their eyes in the right spot and all those little intricacies that they work on throughout camp. And so we'll have to see. We'll have to see where those guys are. But you pointed it out, and you're dead on. They are not lacking talent. What they are lacking is guys who've gone out and done it consistently at this level. But they're going to get thrown into the fire in Atlanta on Sunday, and we'll just have to see how they perform.
Well, one of those guys that's generated some of the best buzz in the offseason, and we had Debo Williams in studio with us, 1 week ago, and he was singing the praises of J.R. Johnson, Fred Johnson, whatever the heck we're going to call him. But they see a lot of the same elements in him that you had in those linebackers a year ago, just not quite the level of experience because he's only been on the team for a year and just kind of rotated in when he could when those guys needed a breather a year ago. But everything we hear about this guy or see about him in practice, he certainly seems and looks the part, and now he's going to have the opportunity to go out there and prove it this upcoming weekend and upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean, he's a sophomore, the sophomore from Norfolk, Virginia, beautiful Norfolk, Virginia. And he's kind of the old guy in the room, right, Tyler?
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, Sean Murphy is going to play, the kid from Florida State. Jerron Willis is going to play. Justin Okoronkwo, is going to play. I mean, those guys are talented dudes, and you're going to see other guys in there. But he's kind of the old man, and he's only been here for 1 year. So, that in natural football conversation, that does give people some pause. Like, okay, it's kind of this guy's room, but he's only a sophomore, and I don't think he's ever started a game here. So, I'll take the word of a guy like Debo Williams. Debo Williams, number one, outstanding human being. Number two, comes from Delaware. He's a blue hen. He shows up in the SEC, and he's like, I'll be fine, and he was. So, this is a guy that understands the system. He understands what it takes to play in this league. He understands what it takes, as an individual to get yourself ready to play in this league. And if a guy like Debo Williams is publicly saying, hey, look, Fred Johnson's the dude, or JR, or whatever, like you said, whatever they're going to call him, it's good to hear. We know he's athletic. We know he can play. But is he ready to take on that role of leader in the middle of the defense like that? That's exciting to watch.
Again, Jamie Bradford joining us on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Of course, on Friday, you had the really good news of Darius Gray committing to South Carolina, 5-star interior offensive lineman out of Richmond. And, this is a program in the time under Beamer that has done a really good job of recruiting offensive line talent. The thing is, and we kind of touched on this a moment ago, we got to start seeing the results on the field. Like, it's great to bring these guys in, but there's just some kind of connection missing there in the middle in terms of that translating over to good offensive line play when Saturdays roll around. And, we're looking at guys like Josiah Thompson, assuming Casey Henry may start at right tackle, taking a jump in their second year as respective starters. But I don't blame people for leaning towards the negative when it comes to the offensive line because you haven't seen enough consistent play out of them yet.
No, I don't either, and it's nothing personal with any of the guys on this team at all or any of the coaches, but there have been numerous years for a long time, long before Shane Beamer came back to be the head coach at South Carolina, where it was thought that the offensive line was going to be pretty good. And, word out of camp, they're in a good spot, and then it turns out it wasn't, or injuries derailed it, or whatever the case was, or it took some time to kind of come together. They did get better as the season went along last year. Now, Lenore Sellers also mitigated some of the, like, if you go back and look at how many times Carolina quarterbacks were sacked through, like, the first 5 games versus the last 7, it's a night and day difference. But also you had a guy who was able to escape a lot of that stuff like a magician. I mean, it was crazy watching some of that stuff unfold with him, or else those numbers would have been a little inflated. And to add to what you're saying, there's a stat floating around on the internet that the 2 rookie offensive linemen who didn't allow a sack, the top 2 offensive linemen who played the most snaps and did not allow a sack in the preseason in the NFL are Vershawn Lee and Torcelli Simpkins. Well, they both played here last year, and so, yeah, it's fair to question why does it take a while for this thing to get itself worked out, and why do they sometimes underperform, or whatever questions you might have. Those are fair questions. This group here, I think the expectations are pretty high for them, Tyler. And I'll be honest, I'm not going to be shocked at all if Shed Surratt, a true freshman, trots out there at left guard coming up on Sunday. This will be the second straight year where a true freshman has earned a starting assignment on the offensive line, because Josiah Thompson did it last year. And so it's very fair to have a wait-and-see approach on those guys. And if it's a little shaky in game 1, why was that? And are these the guys that you're going to get it corrected with moving forward, or are there changes necessary, or whatever it is? But, yeah, I think it's very fair to question all that stuff until you see it perform at a high level.
I'm assuming we get the depth chart tomorrow because everything's off by a week because you're playing on Sunday. You got a guess for how many oars we're going to see? I think last year we had 16.
Yeah, I put that out the other day myself. Well, let's start with this. Let's start, because you're not just talking about the starters, right? You're just saying in general,
just in general, across the board.
Okay, let's start with this. They're all going to be oars in the running back room. Would you disagree with that?
No,
I think we're going to agree with that.
Not
right?
at all. Not at all.
Okay.
By the way, do you put Faison on there even though he's not eligible yet? Like, how do we do that?
I don't even know if they can if he's not eligible, but I don't think they would if he's not eligible. I think they would just update the depth chart. So that's 3 oars, right? From 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Okay. I don't think there's going to be oars as the starters go at wide receiver, but I do think there's going to be plenty of oars behind them. So let's call that 3 more. There's 6 right there on the offense. You're probably going to get one at tight end somewhere. That's 7. And you won't have one at quarterback, obviously. You might have one on the offensive line. That's 8. And then on the defensive side of the football, I don't know if there is one. There might be one in the starters, but then I would say there's probably another 4 or 5 behind it. I had my number at 12.5 the other day.
Yeah, it's gonna be close, that's for sure. And even some of the spots that we've seen in the past where one guy's a starter, you still get an oar there. Where it's like, okay, that means they're just going to rotate in. But I wouldn't put it past them to have quite a few, to say the least.
No, I don't think so, man. I think, and there's going to be a lot of guys that play this weekend. Shane has been very open about that. There's no reason not to believe him. I mean, he's telling you the truth. The question I have is what's going on with the kickers and the punters. I think Max Kelly and Mason Love seem to have the upper hands there, but I guess we'll have to see. That's a couple of freshmen, if that's the case, punting and kicking for you, and that can be a little nerve-wracking.
No, we'll hear from Beamer on Wednesday to get the latest update on that. Jamie, appreciate your time, and look forward to talking to you on Mondays, and hopefully next week we'll have good things to talk about from Game 1.
I hope so. You're right, man. Have a great week and pull them through next weekend.
All right, you too. Thanks, Jamie Bradford there on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. We'll come back. We'll wrap up today's show. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Captain Dave along with you here on your Monday on the Game.